Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and still undefined, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am robcasting at you. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, episode number 693, the show about something. For those of you interested, the 700th show will be happening on May 31st. A few more extra days than you might think. May 31st, we will be finishing off, finally, the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. 5 months late, but we're still going to finish it, and it's going to be great. And there's lots of interviews, a lot of surprises happening, and it will be an 11.6 hour show. There will be pre-recorded segments, but it will be running for 11.6 hours. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies. It's going to be a party, and it's going to be fun. So join us. Now, before I get into today's topic. Hi, what's going on with my hair? I don't know. Hang on. Before I get into today's topic, there's another topic I want to talk about. Twitch. Something's going on over at Twitch that was brought to my attention by Kevin Ross, and I wanted to discuss it. I'm going to jump into it because it has, I guess, far-reaching ramifications. At least I think it very well might. And the first thing I want to talk about, boom, is this article. Twitch hot tub streamer has ads pulled by the streaming site. That's right. One of Twitch's most popular streamers said the live streaming service has cut her off from advertising revenue, even though she has not broken any rules. Amaranth is known for her video streams from a hot tub. They've become a divisive topic amongst Twitch users in recent months. But swimwear is explicitly permitted under Twitch's own rules. Amaranth alleged she'd been targeted because her content is not advertiser-friendly. It is the latest landmark in a long-running row over so-called hot tub streamers and their high profile on Amazon-owned Twitch, which traditionally focused on game streaming content. Twitch allows anyone over the age of 13 to use this service and is popular amongst teenagers. I mean, go figure. Why wouldn't it be, huh? But much of the criticism has sexist overtones, with disparaging slang used for female streamers based on what they wear, or claims that some streams amount to softcore porn. An alarming precedent. Amaranth, whose real name is Caitlin Siragusa, said Twitch had indefinitely suspended advertising on her channel without any notice or warning that she was breaking any rules. Twitch didn't reach out in any way whatsoever, she said in a series of tweets, adding that she only found out about the change when she noticed ad revenue had disappeared. This is an alarming precedent and serves as a stark warning that although content may not ostensibly break community guidelines or terms of service, Twitch has complete discretion to target individual channels and partially or wholly demonetize them for content that is deemed not advertiser-friendly. But there is no known policy for what results in a streamer being put on this blacklist, she added. Twitch policies say that sexually suggestive content is banned, but its examples include suggestive camera framing, groping certain body parts, or erotic dances, such as those involving stripping. In a stream on Wednesday after the ban, Amaranth told her viewers that her ad revenue was making me $30,000 a month. Man, I'm getting on Twitch, yo. And that was much higher than the amount she received from direct donations from viewers. Gaming news sites Kotaku, which has been reporting on the hot tub controversy for months, reported that Twitch has never demonetized a streamer this way before, and that this move sets a new precedent for the site. I mean, you know, when this kind of thing is happening, It's very distressing. I can understand why she's upset. And her fans are upset as well. The topic has been debated by both streamers and their viewers, with some fearing that sexually suggestive content, such as hot tub streams, could make Twitch a less attractive platform for advertisers and thus hurt earnings across the board. In a stream in April, Amaranth said, "I will agree long term it is probably damaging for Twitch's ad revenue. However, if they allow it, they allow it. It's their choice. It is what it is. Advertising is only paid to Twitch streamers who are part of its partner program, which it can remove people from at any time. The site can also suspend accounts at any time for any conduct that we determine to be inappropriate or harmful. But neither of those sanctions appear to have been used in this case. The site has partially redrawn its rules on sexually suggestive content and partial nudity last year, after a years-long similar row over women's cleavage on live streams. Twitch has been contacted for comment on Amaranth's advertising suspension." Now, this article came to us from the BBC Tech. I don't see that there is an author credited. Otherwise, as you know, I would do so. Now, that's not all. That is not the only article. So here's what happened after that. And I find this sort of interesting. This comes to us from The Verge today. Twitch launches a dedicated hot tubs category after advertiser pushback. Being found to be sexy by others is not against our rules. This comes from Jacob, I can't pronounce this. Jacob Kastronakis. Please forgive me, Jacob. Twitch is launching a dedicated category for hot tub streams after claiming it has received pushback from advertisers and viewers about how the trend has taken over the platform. The new pools, hot tubs, and beaches category is meant to let creators stream what they want while also giving Twitch advertisers a more convenient way to prevent ads from running on streams they don't approve of. Who doesn't appreciate a hot tub stream? I don't know. Earlier this week, Twitch pulled advertising from some hot tub streamers without warning. In a statement sent to The Verge today, the company said it was a mistake. "We did not alert impacted creators at the time, and we should have our creators rely on us," a spokesperson said. Twitch said the ads were suspended at advertisers' request and that it's now working with individual creators to restore ads where appropriate. In particular, the ad suspension hit Amaranth, who is one of the platform's biggest streamers. Her channel is now showing ads again, though it appears her hot tub streams have been removed. Twitch said its policies on what is and isn't allowed on the platform aren't changing. The company is not going to prevent people from streaming in hot tubs or swimwear. While sexually suggestive content remains banned, content-appropriate clothing, like bathing suits in a pool, is allowed. Being found to be sexy by others is not against our rules. Thank God for that. And Twitch will not take enforcement action against women or anyone on our service for their perceived attractiveness. The company wrote in bold in a blog post this afternoon. The post is a surprisingly direct message from a tech company laying out the competing interests and problems being faced in a situation that most other companies would address in a vague manner at best. Hot tub streamers tend to be women, and they've often faced sexist harassment from men who don't like seeing them or their success on Twitch. Twitch's new system plays into that to an extent. It pulls their streams out of the very popular Just Chatting section and moves it to the brand new Hot Tub section. But it also validates this type of streaming is allowed and welcome on the platform. In its blog post, the company says, first and foremost, no one deserves to be harassed for the content they choose to stream. Twitch says that adding a new category is not its long-term solution to giving advertisers more control over what streams their ads run on, but it views this as a short-term solution, saying it allows viewers to avoid or seek out hot tub content and gives creators a place to continue streaming it. Brands will be able to opt in or out of placing ads on streams in that category. That could be bad news for creators, though. The so-called hot tub meta has been a huge success for streamers, but part of the reason for participating in it is that more viewers generally means more ad revenue. If Twitch can't get advertisers to opt into the hot tub section, there may be fewer streamers willing to take part. Gosh, something tells me there'll be plenty of advertisers willing to advertise on the hot tub section of Twitch. Now, the final part of this trilogy today is Twitch's actual statement that came out today. Let's talk about hot tub streams. Over the past few weeks, we've seen and had many conversations about hot tub streams, and we want to address it candidly. The content brings up questions that are complex with few easy, clear answers. I'd say there is an easy, clear answer. Who doesn't like hot tub streams? We're approaching it thoughtfully and respectfully, which is why we've taken our time to address it publicly after a lot of internal deliberation. Given the nuances, this is going to be a long post, but we wanted to explain in detail our thinking and approach, as well as the next steps, both in the short and long term. Much of the conversation we've seen has focused on the people who are streaming this and similar content, including assumptions about their motivations and intentions. And we want to make a few things clear. First and foremost, no one deserves to be harassed for the content they choose to stream, how they look, or who they are. And we will take action against anyone who perpetuates this kind of toxicity on our service. Second, while we have guidelines about sexually suggestive content, being found to be sexy by others is not against our rules, and Twitch will not take enforcement action against women or anyone on our service for their perceived attractiveness. I find this astonishing. I really do. I find this absolutely astonishing that a tech company, Amazon, who owns Twitch, had to come out and actually say, while we have guidelines about sexually suggestive content, being found to be sexy by others is not against our rules, and Twitch will not take enforcement action against women or anyone on our service for their perceived attractiveness. Has our world gone mad? I mean, either our world has gone completely bonkers or nerds be nerdin'. Because it's like, you know what? Attractive girls have been treading on their attractiveness, let me see, since the dawn of time. I mean, it's just a thing that women have that they get to exploit if they choose to do so. That is their choice. And you can choose to watch or not. But I love that a tech company had to finally come out and actually state for the record that it's okay to be attractive. And we're not going to enforce any action against people who are, only the people that harass those that are. There has been confusion around whether streams from hot tubs are permissible under our current policies, and we understand why our rules as written have contributed to that confusion. Under our current nudity and attire and sexually suggestive content policies, streamers may appear in swimwear in contextually appropriate situations, at the beach, in a hot tub, for example, and we allow creative expression like body writing and body painting, provided the streamer has appropriate coverage as outlined by our attire policy. Nudity or sexually explicit content, which we define as pornography, sex acts, and sexual services, are not allowed on Twitch. Our intention with the sexually suggestive policy was to draw a line on content that is overtly or explicitly sexually suggestive, not to ban all content that could be viewed as sexually suggestive, but we acknowledge that our rules are not as clear as they could be. Prohibiting every form of content that could be interpreted as suggestive would also result in far more restrictions on the video games and premium content that we currently allow, especially considering the ways that female characters are sometimes objectified or presented in a sexualized manner. Sexually suggestive content and where to draw the line is an area that is particularly complex to assess, as sexual suggestiveness is a spectrum that involves some degree of personal interpretation of where that line falls, as opposed to determining whether or not there is nudity. We will always aim to avoid being overly punitive based on assumptions. When we have taken enforcement action on this content, we've only done so in the case of a clear violation of our guidelines to make the lines between what we consider to be overtly or explicitly sexually suggestive more clear. Our team is planning to update our policies on sexually suggestive content in the coming months. I can't wait for that. We also want to address questions from our creators without suspending advertising on their channels. On Twitch, brands get to decide where and when their ads appear. Today, they can target or avoid specific categories of content and flag channels that don't meet their standard. This means that Twitch, in rare cases, will suspend advertising on a channel at the advertiser's request. We absolutely do not permit brands to use protected characteristics as a filter for advertising targeting or blocking. We recently suspended advertising on some channels that were flagged by the majority of our advertiser base and failed to notify them. Our creators rely on us, and we should have alerted effective streamers to this change before it happened. Yes, you should, and I appreciate Twitch and Amazon admitting this. Nicely done. It was a mistake not to do so. They flat out said it. It was a mistake not to do so. We're working with individual creators to address their specific situation and restore ads where appropriate. We recognize that our diverse global community has a broad range of interests and preferences, and not all of the content allowed on Twitch is relevant to everyone. We think it's important that viewers have a choice in determining the type of content that is suggested to them, and brands have the right to determine where their ads appear on the service. We are working to develop more robust controls for advertisers and viewers to enable them to control their experience on our service. Additionally, we need to provide creators with a better understanding of what brand safe means to advertisers outside of our community guidelines and terms of service, and provide better ways to categorize their content. These, along with updates to the sexually suggestive policy, are longer-term solutions that will take time to build and implement. In the immediate term, one of the challenges this situation has highlighted is the lack of specificity in the just chatting category. Viewers can flag content as not interested in order to remove specific channels or categories from their recommendations. However, due to the broad range of content in just chatting and the fact that many creators stream in just chatting for a portion of their streams, that is not an effective way to remove a subset of content like creators streaming in pools or hot tubs. Community and advertiser feedback made it clear that we need to offer more ways to control the content that's recommended as well as where ads appear, so we're introducing a new category: pools, hot tubs, and beaches. If you've chosen swimwear that is allowed under the swim and beaches contextual exception to our standard nudity and attire policy, you should stream into the pools, hot tubs, and beaches category. We'll be reaching out to creators with more details on how to use this category moving forward. This is not intended to be our long-term solution to improve brand targeting capabilities and increase personalization in our recommendations. It does, however, solve a few issues for all audiences in the near term. Creators can continue to stream content that falls into this category as long as it doesn't violate our guidelines. Viewers can better avoid recommendations for content that they don't want to see. And those wishing to view this content will have an easier time finding it. And brands can either opt in or opt out of this category based on whether it aligns with their target audiences, like they can today with any other category. The pools, hot tubs, and beaches category is live today. This article provides more information about what kind of content should be streamed to this category, which I'm not going to read. We have a lot of work to do, and it's going to take time to implement all the changes we've outlined. We'll share updates on the work as we have them. Wow. Okay, why did I choose to share this? Because one, I see two things happening here. I don't know if any of you followed what happened to Andy Signore. His channel, Popcorn Planet, was demonetized because he was reporting on the Amber Heard situation, and apparently he was the focus of some kind of, I didn't really quite understand, people were complaining or flagging his channel, and it was demonetized by YouTube. He fought back, and he had his channel remonetized. This kind of thing is happening a lot, but what I really appreciated about this entire incident is it was reported on, it was talked about for months, but Twitch, backed by Amazon, took decisive action. They did something actually that I was surprised by. Rather than the draconian measures many tech companies employ, sometimes you could be demonetized or you could be deplatformed and you don't know why. It's a mystery, like when in Shakespeare in Love. It's a mystery. How's this going to work? It's a mystery. I don't know. But they came out in front of it after one of their biggest attractions, biggest draws, biggest money makers was deplatformed. They did something, and they mea culpa, hey, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it. And I thought ultimately it was a great thing. As we move forward, as tech giants dominate ever more parts of our lives, the point is that they're acting like draconian totalitarian states for people that are making them money. They call it a partnership program. YouTube does not act as much of a partner as you might want. It's difficult to get people on the phone. It's difficult to get any kind of feedback. But Twitch and Amazon did a pretty good job here. So as we move into these more nebulous realms, and as we move into the future, because that's where we're going to spend the rest of our lives, it's nice to see this kind of thing happening. I find the whole thing actually funny. Why would a pretty girl who looks great in a bikini stream from a hot tub? I mean, the idea is, of course, she's trading on her looks. She's trading on her sex appeal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. No one's forcing her. She's chosen to do it. She's become very successful. And there are people that will always resent successful people. There are dudes that will always resent pretty girls that will never date them. I get it. That's the civilization we've lived in since the dawn of time. But I appreciate her entrepreneurial spirit, and she deserves to make money however she can, doing whatever she loves. And I think that if you're a partner with somebody and you're partnering up with a tech company, this channel is part of the YouTube partnership program. I would hope if anything was questionable on our channel that they would reach out and talk to me before unilaterally acting and perhaps deplatforming me. But these are questions that are going to continue on, and we're going to have to be dealing with them for a long time to come. So I would say ultimately the lesson of all of this is, well, communication. As always, got to keep the lines of communication open. People need to know what's happening with their channels, with their lives, because being on YouTube is, in fact, it is like a job. Some people, certainly, their livelihood is dependent on it. And I completely understand. I think that, I think it was handled well here. Anyway, just thought I'd delve into that and bring it to your attention. I know you're all going, wow, Rob, not your normal bill of fare, which is true. But I figured, why not discuss that kind of a topic? Because I thought, hey, it's pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, sort of interesting. But now we're going to get to the task at hand. And the task at hand is an article I read today. And on now, hang on. I just erased my article. And where did it go? I don't know. I'm looking for it. And I just obliterated it. Well, anyway, so for those of you who don't know, there was a big conference on the 19th about celebrating our return to movie theaters. Arnold Schwarzenegger was there. A lot of people went, and the studios, they played a lot. It was like a mini CinemaCon, and it was something that was kind of a big deal. I'm still looking for my my article. Here it is. I found it. And it was a big thing. So everybody's excited about going back to the movie theaters, and it was supported by all the studios and the mini majors, and everybody sort of took part in this. And it was apparently a success. Everybody was happy that we're celebrating going back to movie theaters, which is very exciting. So that's all good. But, and I think this is incredibly fascinating, there was an article that was written by Ann Thompson and Dana Harris Bridson, and it's all about what all of this meant. And it was sort of it was an examination of what happened with this situation and what are the takeaways from it. So this article was in IndieWire today. It was posted 6 hours ago. Sorry, I'm trying to get back here. This was the week that movie studios finally lost control of the film industry. The big screen is back on May 19th, was in effect CinemaCon Concentrate, the annual 4-day Las Vegas event in which studios and other distributors, it looks a little goofy here. Let me just read it to you. The big screen is back on May 19th was, in effect, CinemaCon Concentrate, the annual 4-day Las Vegas event in which studios and other distributors woo thousands of exhibitors and hundreds of press, boiled down to less than 4 hours in Century City to an audience of about 3 dozen journalists. Scale aside, it was remarkably similar to the classic CinemaCon. 13 distributors touting endless trailers, major producers and filmmakers declaring their dedication to the theatrical experience, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Celebrating movies and our ability to see them in public after a pandemic is normal. What made it strange was the real world was not on display. Everyone knows that the theatrical release is an option, not a necessity. Consider everything that's happened in the 2 years since the last CinemaCon in 2019, which John Campy and I went to in Las Vegas and covered extensively. We've seen the launch of Disney+, Apple+, HBO Max, Paramount+, Peacock, Discovery+, and more. The 90-day theatrical window, to which exhibitors once swore undying allegiance, is dead. 45 days is now accepted as the norm, more or less, and it's understood that distributors may well change their minds. Disney completed its acquisition of 20th Century Fox. Disney also created a new division, the Media and Entertainment Distribution Group, a centralized department that makes all distribution decisions with an eye towards satisfying Disney Plus and Hulu. Theatrical distribution is a legacy platform. Disney Plus currently makes some of their films available day and date with premium payment and subscription. This year, HBO Max makes all of their films available to subscribers day and date at no additional cost. MPA member Netflix bought flagship theaters in New York and Los Angeles. A sex scandal removed Universal Studio chief Ron Meyer, and Warner's head studio chief Kevin Tsujihara was forced to make a similar exit in March 2019. Funny enough, both involve the same woman. This week, AT&T jettisoned Warner Media to a spin-off and merger that put Discovery in charge, while Amazon reportedly mulled a $9 billion purchase of MGM. We have reached a point where major movie studio has begun to sound like an anachronism. Certainly, Warner's and Universal and Paramount and Disney and Sony remain premier global suppliers of films that generate billions, but the studio bosses occupy a lower position on the power charts because it's no longer the movie business that drives the industry. Is that a problem? Not necessarily. Things change. Projectionists used to link film reels on enormous spools for a continuous feed through giant projectors. Studios used to strike thousands of prints, hence the term P&A or prints and ads, from the original negative, hence the term negative costs, to ship celluloid 35mm prints to theaters, which would then have to return them. The late mogul Bob Evans loved giving a souvenir to his home screening room guests, an expired rod from his prized carbon arc lamp projector, long deemed too dangerous for commercial use, like the gorgeous silver nitrate prints now preserved in studio vaults. When Silicon Valley's Netflix sent cinephile Ted Sarandos to Hollywood, he slowly but inexorably turned the streamer into the top movie and television employer in Hollywood and around the globe. Netflix forced studios to adapt or die, resulting in a desperate game of streaming platform catch-up. Streamers may not have the patina of old-fashioned movie studios, but they're dynamic. Studios are not. They develop fewer projects, guided by a narrow sense of what's sufficiently commercial to justify a theatrical release. At this point, how effectively can any movie star put butts in seats? James Bond has been played by 7 actors, and after No Time to Die, a new one is in the offing. Tom Holland is not as popular in Cherry as he is in Spider-Man. Even Energizer Bunny Tom Cruise is more valuable as Ethan Hunt than anyone else. Immersive universes like Star Wars and the MCU lure audiences. Platformed be damned. It was a disturbing revelation for the studios to be outmaneuvered by Netflix dollars they couldn't match. But at least they held an ace. Only they could put filmmakers' movies in theaters. Today, Netflix has its own theaters, as well as newfound willingness from exhibitors to play their titles. Last week, Netflix debuted Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead as a 3-week theatrical, 1-week exclusive, wide release. Many have long believed that this is the paradigm distributors should follow to brand, market, and launch a title. Warner Brothers, bought and sold many times, is a small planet in the Warner Media galaxy. Cost-cutting sent billions to HBO Max, the new crown jewel, while reorganization throughout an entire tier of legacy executives in favor of newbies. Ann Sarnoff and ex-Hulu exec Jason Kilar, A-list director Christopher Nolan, who could once call his own shots, including a theatrical release for Tenet, is looking for a new home that will support his theatrical habit. Warner's current movie studio chairman, Toby Emmerich, does not have the stature that prior Warner chiefs Terry Semel and Alan Horn once commanded. No studio chief does. As their corporate parents spend on streamers, except for Sony, which prefers to make money by selling to them, the studios are likely to suffer trimmed budgets. On the cutting block, cushy expense reports, travel allowances, car leases, fat salaries, vanity projects, and inflated development slates. Many deal contracts are as archaic as the old lexicon. Financiers and studios need a new language and flexibility. Slammed by global lockdowns, the biggest theater chains are also the victims of their overspending, debt burdens, real estate deals, and mostly denying reality. Before the pandemic, they could have struck better terms with the studios on shorter windows and revenue sharing. They held out too long. The Woman in the Window, which Disney inherited in its Fox acquisition, is an example of a starry project that, however disappointing, would ordinarily have played in theaters. Just like blockbuster genre picks and prestige releases, dumping had its place in the exhibition ecosystem. Today, studios sell off weak performers to Netflix, Amazon, and Apple. Only the most powerful stars and the Spielbergs of the world will be able to command and generate a guaranteed theatrical release. Companies adjust. Disney's specialty distributor, Searchlight, under its new management team of David Greenbaum and Matthew Greenfield, plans to release 6 films a year to theaters from directors like Wes Anderson and Guillermo del Toro. It will also produce and acquire for Hulu and star and is now in pre-production on its first limited series, The Dropout, for Hulu and 20th. Even venerable Sony Pictures Classics learned a few things during lockdown about how to make money on PVOD. Although their big Oscar wins for The Father came after a late theatrical release with maximum impact during the Academy voting window. Michael Barker and Tom Bernard recognize that theaters are a unique asset in building word of mouth. If the studios ignore or diminish that value, they will regret it. There was a moment at The Big Screen Is Back where the present snapped into focus. "We are at an inflection point in our world," said Blumhouse founder Jason Blum. "It feels like our industry is too. The collision of recovery from the pandemic and the shifting business models and crazy corporate consolidation of the past week put us at the intersection of recovery and also of change. With change comes opportunity. Every studio is experimenting with different windows and bespoke business models. Movie theaters is where we want to see our work." I agree with Jason Blum. As a matter of fact, I have great admiration for Jason Blum. I do not know him personally, but his model, I mean, he almost single-handedly put $5 million movies back in theaters. If you could make a movie, look at The Invisible Man that he made with Lee Whannell that came out right before the pandemic started. A movie made for $8 million that made over $100 million, I think, domestically. That's incredible. That's the kind of thing. Can you imagine if you had 10 producers that were providing that kind of material to studios, that you were making movies for $8 million that could make $100 million at the box office, utilizing things like the internet to market these movies? I mean, as long as you're not spending exorbitant fees marketing these films, that's good business. And if you have 10 of those people, I mean, the problem with the Hollywood business now, studio movies are all tentpole films, so it means you're spending $100 million plus on all the movies that the studios release. And they have left an entire part of the audience underserved, older audiences, people 40 up. And they've stopped making movies. I think about some of my favorite movies of the last 30 years, 1990, 31 years. Hunt for Red October, literary adaptation of a bestseller. Powerhouse director and John McTiernan coming off of Die Hard. Great ensemble cast. Movie was made for, I don't know how much money, but I bet it was made for less than $50 million. Of course, this is 1990. Classic film. Works even today. Studios are not making those movies. Jack Ryan movies have gone, well, Amazon, Without Remorse. That was a Jack Ryan novel leading into Rainbow Six about a character that we first saw in the Tom Clancy novels that featured Jack Ryan. John Clark, now played by Michael B. Jordan, was spun off. But that movie should have been a theatrical release, and it's not. And I'll tell you, it's unfortunate because I think that the studios, their over-reliance on tentpole properties, and I get it. Studio thinking, corporate thinking is like, okay, well, we're always going to shoot for the home run. We're going to spend $150 to $150 million on a movie for hopefully $1 billion return. How that became the mindset, I mean, I don't understand. I think rather than trying to hit home runs every time, how about base hits? How about an underlying series of base hits? I mean, I know it's all based on economics, but in the long term, what they've done is the studios have eliminated their own ability to make movies like that, and the streamers came in and took over. And now the streamers can also afford those tentpole movies too. Martin Scorsese's new movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, how much is that costing? $200 million or something? Why that has to cost that much money, I don't know, but they're able to pay it. The Irishman, they can pay that too. That would have been a prestige studio project that would have been up for all kinds of Academy Awards, but the business has changed. Do I suggest reverting back to a former model where the studios are supposed to make $35, $45, $55 million movies that might generate $200 or $300 million? Well, not necessarily. I do advocate the Jason Blum, like $10 million or under, shooting for that $100 million gross. That's good business. And why not have like 10 of those coming out a year? And then in addition, make your tent poles. Studios used to release a variety of different kinds of movies. Now they're only releasing one movie. And I see that, I mean, what do we got now? The streamers are doing exactly what the studios used to do, diversifying the kind of things they're making. They'll make a $200 million tentpole, then they'll make a smaller movie. Or they'll pick up what's called the negative pickup from somebody else. The studios aren't doing that anymore. No wonder Toby Emmerich, I mean, he put all this time in at New Line, then at Warner Brothers. He thinks that he's going to rise to be, king shit of the studio system, and now he's looking for a job at Netflix. Please, 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 give me a job, sir. And it's just crazy. The ecosystem is gone. The studio system is gone. Might take a while, but it's not relevant anymore, really. And the only way it can be is if it, as Jason Blum says, changes, because yes, everybody, the people making movies, the people watching movies, we do still want to go to the movie theaters. We do want to see these movies, and it's important. You gotta sort of shuck and jive. You've got to move around. You got to figure out how you're gonna do this. How are you gonna change in the face of massive changes? How are you gonna adapt your business model? It's time to figure shit out. You can't rely on what worked 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, because those ways are gone. They're out of here. I don't know what those solutions are. I really don't know enough about the economics of it. But I do know that I think it's good business when you've got somebody like Blumhouse who can make movies for a little that has Universal. If their films turn out well enough, Universal can release them theatrically. If not, they can go to other places, streamers. They can go to Shudder. They can go wherever. And I think that's a good thing. But it's a really interesting time for the incredible sea change that we've seen in the industry happen. I mean, what we saw a tsunami hit Warner Brothers this week, a week ago today. And over the weekend, people didn't know what was up. When they woke up Monday morning, craziness. So, again, I don't know, but there's one thing I do know. It still comes down to talent and content. I think that the corporate-held studios need to understand, they need to find people that can recognize talent. You have to start betting on your talent instead of betting on whatever property you think may generate because of a spreadsheet or because of your marketing analysis. Those days, I think, are kind of over. We need to go back to the maverick ways of the 70s, where we had arguably one of the best, most vibrant periods of all American cinema, and find that talent. You know, that's what you want. You want diverse talent that's going to make diverse stories and films that interest a lot of people across a wide spectrum. And I think that's the way the studios can stay relevant. You know, they have these relationships with talent. They got to do what they used to do well, which is make fucking movies. Figure it out. Find these talented people that make movies and go with your gut. Somebody needs to be, you know, at least Blumhouse, they go with young auteurs. They find people that are great filmmakers and they go make movies with them for not a lot of money. I think the studios need to go back and find that talent and go make great movies with the talent, as opposed to, you know, having a project, some weird IP that, oh, let's go reboot Men in Black and we'll go hire the most competent person, a director who's on this short list to go make that movie. Well, what about the director? What's he passionate or she's passionate about? What are they passionate about? That's where we need to go. We need to find filmmakers that are, once again, passionate. We need to renovate the movie business by bringing back the talent, and after the article I read the other day, the love. Got to find filmmakers that are passionate. Maybe passionate about an IP, make it worth your while. But who knows? Will it happen? Hard to say. I hope it does. Certainly interesting times. This week was probably one of the more, what would you call it? Rough and tumble. I don't know. That's not the right word, but it was quite a big week for the movie business. It's the 19th. Craziness. Jeff Bingham writes in. Jeff Bingham. Hi, Rob. Spillover fan from John Campia's show, sending in my first-time letter. So be prepared for possible rambling. I ramble. Why shouldn't you? Reading your thoughts after seeing Fast 9 was certainly disheartening, though I still intend to see it as a ride-or-die Fast and the Furious fan. I still am, by the way. A Fast and Furious 10 is more or less inevitable, but I hope, in addition to bringing back both Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, that a new film addresses, for starters, the collateral damage done by the characters throughout the recent batch of films. I want to take this opportunity to address my feelings on Hobbs and Shaw. It was a film that I found fun at first, but it has not held up for me on repeat viewings. There are elements that grow tiresome after a while, particularly the non-stop, self-indulgent dick measuring between the characters. Like the recent Fast and Furious films, the film features a great deal of over-the-top action, which was certainly a far cry from David Leitch's more humble beginnings directing Atomic Blonde and co-directing the first John Wick. Yet something I found particularly jarring was the difference in response to previous Fast and Furious films and this Fast and Furious spin-off. The over-the-top elements of Hobbs and Shaw seem to be getting more of a pass from critics who claim to grow tired of such elements from recent films in the franchise. And from what I've read, the reason for that is a shift in tone. Despite moments of levity from certain supporting characters, the core Fast saga has been considered to take itself too seriously, while it was clear that Hobbs and Shaw was aiming for a goofy, fun tone. It was jarring that elements and logical fallacies that would have gotten chewed out if it were a core Fast movie got a pass in Hobbs and Shaw simply because of its tone. It's ridiculous that the technology has reached a point that they can create cyber genetically engineered super soldiers, but it doesn't matter here because this movie was fun. Dwayne Johnson has become such a superhuman in this franchise that he can fall from massive heights without splattering his body or snapping bones out throughout his skin, or he can hold onto a truck and a chained helicopter without letting go of either or having his limbs ripped off, but it doesn't matter here because the movie was fun. The amount of distance traveled in this movie can't be achieved within the timetable established through its ticking clock plotline, but it doesn't matter here because this movie was fun. These kind of sentiments were jarring because this was the growing feeling that it wasn't being treated as part of the Fast and Furious franchise, despite the fact that the official title is Fast and the Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, and that you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that Hobbs and Shaw are Fast and Furious characters. That, in turn, created a feeling that people wanted to take sides in the Vin Diesel-Dwayne Johnson feud, which was disheartening to me because I personally didn't want there to be a feud in the first place. I can understand the desire to expand the Fast universe and provide the audience with an entry in the franchise that embraced a goofy, fun tone, but my biggest problem with Hobbs & Shaw, particularly upon repeat viewings, is that every decision felt like it was in service of goofy fun and not character and universe expansion. I discussed this with another Fast and the Furious fan who preferred most of the core saga entries, save for Tokyo Drift, over Hobbs & Shaw, and he made what I think is the best point. Hobbs & Shaw was more a Dwayne Johnson movie than a Fast and Furious movie, despite having a Fast and Furious label on it. And I personally have developed a growing disinterest in Dwayne Johnson movies going back to his supposed attempt at 21 Jump Street with the Baywatch flop. The biggest problem with the Baywatch movie wasn't that it was a Baywatch movie, it was a Dwayne Johnson movie. Dwayne Johnson has stated numerous times on social media that he wants to make goofy fun movies that play to worldwide 4-quadrant audiences. The problem, of course, with the Baywatch movie is that it was an R-rated comedy which doesn't fit into Dwayne Johnson's brand of movies, thus trying to force one fit into a brand that proved fatal. In a general sense, though, it's always about prioritizing fitting his movies to a certain tone, which, as I've said, Hobbs & Shaw tries to do. And frankly, there's a growing feeling of self-indulgence toward this mindset of making movies. Between Dwayne Johnson playing Hobbs like a prototypical alpha male, to smaller elements like the annoyingly unfunny Kevin Hart cameo that was put in for no reason other than his real-life connection to Dwayne Johnson, it's too self-satisfied in a way that disconnects me from the movie. Not too dissimilar to how the action sequences of the core Fast saga are so over-the-top now they're causing a growing disconnect amongst fans like yourself. I admit that I haven't seen Fast 9 yet, so I could very well share your sentiments upon seeing it. Oh, I think you will. But in my personal opinion, I'm not looking forward to Hobbs & Shaw as the future of the franchise either. And I know film is subjective, but I'm not a fan of Hobbs & Shaw getting a pass for its antics due to its tone over the antics of the core Fast saga when there's no real consideration as to how Hobbs & Shaw fits into the universe it is so clearly a part of. When you voiced your disappointment in Fast 9 and the progression of the Fast franchise, you didn't make mention of Hobbs & Shaw, so I'm curious as to your feelings post-F9 on Hobbs & Shaw as the future of the Fast franchise once the core saga reaches the finish line. Well, Jeff, what a great letter. Please write in again. I agree with everything you said here. My feeling is that the core franchise, like I said, has become completely untethered from reality. And when you have a franchise that is, its very essence is that it's giving you car chases and things that are supposed to happen in the real world, when you turn those car chases into cartoons, you lose what made them so much fun in the first place. Like, you want to see real cars racing on real streets or through city streets or everywhere else. That's what's cool about it, is that you want to, because we've all driven in cars, we've all wanted to drive fast at some point. We want to see things in these movies we can't normally do. And it makes it fun. When the car chases or whatever, I'll tell you something. The Fast 9 lost me. There's an opening sequence that I won't get into that's interesting. It was an interesting direction. I thought, oh, this is interesting. But then after that, there's a big action scene involving our characters. And it was a cartoon. And I'll tell you what, Hobbs & Shaw started it. I mean, it was mildly amusing, but about halfway through, I really lost interest. I found myself bored to tears because the action, it's no longer fun. You know, when the action is so cartoonish, you're no longer watching a movie, you are watching a cartoon. But I really do think that a lot of this, especially the globe trotting, and like you astutely pointed out, how do you get from one place to another? Fast 9 doesn't care about any of that. You're watching it. I was tuned out. I mean, I watched the whole thing, but I was tuned out. I mean, I hate when this happens, but it got to the point where I literally was rolling my eyes and I was not enjoying watching the movie. And it's not that it isn't well made and the cast is fine and all that, but it embraced this goofiness. Like, I don't understand why the filmmakers of the Fast and the Furious franchise, we now have 2 movies that are great case studies about how to torpedo what made your franchise fun in the first place. You know, it's the critics and the population at large that's making fun of these films. But if you look, Fast 5, starting with Fast 6, 7, and 8, you just increasingly are leaving reality behind. In Fast 9, there's no reality anymore at all. And there were very few. The action scenes were so, I just didn't care. I was completely tuned out. There were no stakes. You knew nothing was going to happen to any of the characters. It was just noise. And what it was, it's cutscene filmmaking. The whole movie was cutscenes from a video game. That's what it was. That's what it felt like. Or you were playing the game. And maybe it's because all filmmakers, when they're not making movies, they are playing video games. And people, I really honestly think that people have lost their sense of understanding what makes a great action sequence. But in this film, there's all kinds of vehicular mayhem, and you've seen a lot of it in the trailer. You can tell right from the trailer. You don't even need to see the movie. If what you see in the trailer appeals to you, and that's your sense of fun, all right. As we see a whole car gets a rope bridge falls down, and the car Vin Diesel drives over a car over this, and somehow it attaches to the car in such a way that it can use momentum and fling the car up all the way out in a 180-degree arc and get on the other side of a rock outcropping. I mean, come on. That to me, I'm like, I'm out. I know that is physically impossible. And when you start doing that, I mean, you go back to my favorite movie, the franchise, is Fast Five. They set up what they need to do. I look at the train heist when they steal the cars from the train. That makes sense to me. You watch it, there's real jeopardy. They're in a real train. You understand exactly what's going on, and it ends up being gobbledygook. And unfortunately, it was not something that I was necessarily that into. Did not dig it. It was kind of annoying. And I was quite disappointed. Our friend Hassan Chavez writes in a quick one. Hey, you often criticize J.J. Abrams for depicting spaceships flying in the stratosphere or floating on water, but now that your government confirmed UFOs are real and there's evidence of one object disappearing into the ocean, does that mean his movies have more verisimilitude? That's all. Take care, man. Well, Hassan, the answer to that is no, because the difference is whatever smaller alien craft are operating in the world's oceans is they're designed to do it. When you have the Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise, a large capital ship that somehow manages within the gravity well of a planet to soft land in the ocean, I mean, nope. The Starship Enterprise was never meant to function in the gravity well of a planet in that manner, and especially all for just one fish joke out the window. But I think it's very funny, very funny. This is kind of a sad letter. Video Hunter D writes in and said, Dear Rob, I am wrecked. After over 30 years of writing the epic dark fantasy manga Berserk, the creator, Kentaro Miura, has passed away at age 54, leaving the story unfinished. And he died of like an aorta. Was he having a surgery or something? From inspiring games like Dark Souls to giving us some of the most amazing statues out there with those awesome Prime 1 statues heavily featured on Gem Mint's channel. By the way, I love Gem Mint's channel, and I love when he gets a Berserk statue because he loves his Berserk statues, and they're awesome. Berserk has been a giant. Are you a fan of this series, or have you experienced losing the creator of something you love before it is finished? Rest in peace. I am devastated. Now, I know Berserk. I've actually read some of the manga. I haven't read all of the manga because it's, like you said, it's huge. I like Berserk a lot. It's hideously violent. I love it. But it's hideously violent, yet very compelling characters. And there's emotionalism in Berserk. I think it's a great thing, and it's hugely influential. Hugely influential. So I think it's a bummer that he didn't get to finish his work. Did he leave his notes? I think that when you talk about losing the creator of something that you love before it's finished, I'd say Game of Thrones. Even though the creator's still here, he hasn't written a new book in 10 years, and we ended up getting the 7th and 8th seasons of the show. I mean, the 7th season is forgivable, but the 8th season, having just finished it, we're on the last episode. We haven't watched the last episode yet. We just watched The Bells. That show, just wow. But I've never really lost a creator that was in the middle of doing something that we'll never see finished. Not like this, because this is a big deal, and it's a bummer. I hope he left notes. Maybe he knew he was sick. I don't know, but it is a bummer. it is a bummer. So, what can you do? Pasty Copper Top writes in and says, "Hello, RMB. I hear that another Batman animated show is in the works. Yeah, Bruce Timm's coming back. As with the new film soon to be upon us, I'm a bit sigh about it. Like many comic book fans, I love Batman, but I'm just kind of over him. I hate the showrunner saying in an arrogant voice, we want to take a deep dive into what makes Batman Batman. Yawn. I will say that if the film goes into the detective route, that'd be cool. But how about this? Take a deep dive into a character like Hawkman, who has had a notorious history in the comics with consistency of origin. Can you imagine all the cool Egyptian mythology they could go into? Or how about an ultimate sci-fi story with Adam Strange? I know the Black Knight is showing up in Eternals, but a cool fantasy story like Game of Thrones that involves him and the other method of other heroes of the time. Just a thought. I like obscure characters and their backgrounds. It seems like Hollywood just keeps going down the same road instead of taking a bit of a chance. I know money is at stake, but if you keep things fresh, you'll be surprised how much people would dig it. Those films or shows don't have to be so comical either. One last one I thought of is a war drama featuring the Howling Commandos in the same form as Saving Private Ryan or Tour of Duty. I think the Post-Geek Singularity community would appreciate different, but are there enough of us out there? Let's hope. Long live individual thought and beautiful creativity by all. Thanks again, RMB, and you, sir, have a better day. Well, Pasty Copper Top, thank you for that. I totally agree with this. You know what? I remember back in 2008, people said, well, all right, is anybody going to care about Iron Man? Like, he's kind of a second-tier Marvel character. They made you care. That's the job of storytellers. It's like, it's so weird. Has everyone forgotten what we're here to do? As I've always said on the show, no one in Hollywood got rich following a trend. You set trends. Kevin Feige and the boys, Louis D'Esposito, Victoria Alonso, the boys and the girl, they've been consistently hitting it out of the park with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it began with Iron Man. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Why not do a Hawkman movie? What's to stop you from doing that? And I don't know, nothing. But people are like, who's Hawkman? Well, why don't you find out? If you're in a position where you can greenlight a project, why don't you do some research? Why don't you go read something yourself? Why don't you look through the who's who of the DC universe and go, this character sounds interesting. Why don't I go figure out something about this character? I mean, Batman. The only reason everybody knows Batman is because they've only made Batman movies. You know, maybe if they made a Hawkman movie and it kicked ass and somebody cool played Hawkman, suddenly Hawkman would be on your radar. Do you know what? RoboCop wasn't a comic book. RoboCop was an original creation. Meyer wrote that, right? Script, then it was something new. Dan O'Bannon wrote the script for Alien. You know, it was developed and they made that. Look at that. Alien's still around even today. It's amazing to me that these people that are supposed to figure out what's going to be made in Hollywood, they don't do their job. But I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Let's see. This one comes from DC. 'Tis I, DC, the Count of Geekery, from the now not-so-lockdown UK wasteland. It's still a wasteland. It's just more like Thunderdome now and populated by the post-lockdown slow mutants. Rob, I hope you and the family are doing well, and to the PGS, I hope you are well also. I know it's been a long while since my last letter, oh gentle friends. I've been struggling with my mental health and have been battling suicidal thoughts in the past few weeks, since I was told in no uncertain terms by my family that I was not allowed to attend my eldest brother's funeral, which was a week after my last letter. This was not because of COVID restrictions. I was not allowed to attend because several of my aunts have this idiotic idea that because I pretty much only wear black clothes, love heavy metal, and have a deep dive and love of horror movies and fiction, or I have a deep love of, they believe that it would be poor taste for me to attend the funeral. As one of them put it, you would enjoy it too much, DC? Yeesh. I'm sorry about that. I'm very sorry to hear that. I know, right? What a fucking bunch of assholes. Needless to say, the fallout was epic in both good ways and bad, but I'll spare you the rest of that. It's still raw for me. But to the purpose of this letter, oh gentle friends. Rob, I know you, along with a fair few in the PGS, are looking forward to the new Dune adaptation, as am I. I'm a huge fan of the Dune series and have read all the books, solely written by Frank Herbert, 6 times. So those 6 books you've read 6 times. And I'm planning to embark on my 7th reread of those books before the new movie's released. I have read the Dune books co-written by Brian Herbert and Kevin G. Anderson, and The Road to Dune, which was written by both Herberts and Andersons, 1 time each. Of course, everyone remembers the previous Dune adaptations and their somewhat mixed reception. Looking at the trailer for the new movie, however, I'm still unsure as to whether this movie will break the cycle of mixed bag or bad Dune adaptations. Dune is a book that is hard to adapt, and anyone who has read the book will understand why that is. I personally think a multi-season Dune TV show with 1-hour episodes is where Dune should have gone. But that being said, I have hope for the movie. This got me thinking about books that should be adapted, that some have claimed would be too difficult to adapt. The list is long, and many of my favorite books are on that list. One book that is not on the list anywhere, but I feel will end up on it, is a book by my favorite British author, Neil Gaiman. The novel is called The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Rob, if you and anyone in the PGS have not read this book, I implore you to do so. It's a fairly short book for a novel. The UK edition comes in at 235 pages. It can be read in an afternoon at the quickest. It's a beautiful book. It's a dark fantasy written in the first person. The story is told to the reader by the unnamed narrator after he returns to his hometown for a funeral of an unnamed person and visits his childhood home and the farm that stands at the end of the lane. Whilst there, he remembers the strange events that some may describe as supernatural and some may describe as otherworldly that took place one summer when he was 7. The book is haunting, powerful, and beautiful. One of the best books I've ever read. When you read the book, you sometimes feel as though you're reading about yourself. It's a wonderful thing to experience. With scenes and images that will burn themselves into your mind forever. There's one scene in my mind right now as I write this letter that's giving me shivers. If anyone ever asks me where to start with Neil Gaiman, I used to point them to The Sandman or his novel Neverwhere. But since The Ocean at the End of the Lane was published, I tell people to start there. Everyone I've recommended it to has enjoyed it thoroughly, even people who don't like fantasy. This book should be a movie, but yet it isn't, because someone somewhere will say it's too hard to adapt. The reasons claimed will be because the source material is too strange, which is total bullshit. There's reasons it won't get adapted anytime soon, and that's due to the cancer that is wokeness. It's not diverse enough, some will say. Again, total bullshit. There's more female characters than male ones, and there's also a South African gentleman. Another reason it won't get adapted at the present time due to the cancer that is wokeness is because there's a female villain and a male lead. It won't get touched. Thankfully, this is a story where the characters can't be gender swapped, as the male version of the villain won't work, and neither will a female version of the lead. Those who have read the book will know exactly what I mean, and if you have yet to read the book, it will become clear to you why when you do so. For the movie adaptation of the book, there's only 2 creatives that should have the directing and writing duties. The director should be no one other than Guillermo del Toro. If you have read the book and seen his movies, you'll understand why I put his name forward, and when you read the book, you will also, and the writer of the script should be, well, no one other than Neil Gaiman himself. Honestly, I don't think anyone could write the screenplay the right way other than Neil Gaiman. Only he could capture the sheer magic of the book. This pairing of creatives for a movie adaptation of this book is a no-brainer. My question for you, Rob, is this. Is there one book or one book series that you've read in the genres of horror, sci-fi, or fantasy that has yet to be adapted that you would love to see on the big and small screen? And could you explain why? I'd love to see what books the PGS suggest in the chat. And so for now, oh gentle friends, I'd like to say if you're feeling down, like there's no way out, or having thoughts of self-harm and or suicide, please reach out to someone. You'll find that people would rather hear your story and go to your funeral than go to your funeral, as I did. Stay safe out there and look out for one another. May the force be with you all, always. Well, a great letter, DC. I hope you're feeling better. If there's one thing you can do, I've been told by a lot of people that our Midnight Metal streams and the Robservations Midnighter, people have enjoyed the sense of community there, so you're always welcome to join. For those of you who don't know, on the Midnighter show, it's sort of evolved. It's now a radio talk-in show where you call in. And if you would like to appear on the Midnighter, we're obviously starting at midnight Pacific time. From now on, I want people to write in early so I can schedule you for a show, because I want to make sure we change it up and get new people. So just send in a letter to the Burnettwork and put on the subject heading Midnighter Guest, and send in a letter and you can join us. Tonight, however, Tonight we're going to get metal. Yeah! It's the weekend, so Midnight Metal tonight. I'm joined by my co-host Dave Parker tomorrow. Tonight I'm flying solo, but I'm sure there might be some interesting surprises. So check that out. Omar94 writes in and says, Rob, moderators in the Post-Geek Singularity, since you always talk about verisimilitude, that has me interested in wondering how much of a part that plays when it comes to historical accuracy. Even if the movie is good, we'll always hear people say it's historically inaccurate. I thought about this when I was reading an interview with Charles Edward Pogue, the co-writer of David Cronenberg's The Fly. He mentioned how he once wrote a script for a Viking movie which never got made called The Last Viking. And he mentioned when writing it, he made sure it was historically accurate as he diligently researched the subject matter. I have mixed feelings on this. On one hand, I understand how historical accuracy matters, since it might give people the wrong impression how something really happened. On the other, sometimes for creating the best story, creators have to alter what really happened. That's what I always think about when I see Braveheart or Disney's Pocahontas. I'm not completely familiar with the actual history of the events in those movies, but I only know a little bit. In the case of Pocahontas, I know John Smith and Pocahontas did not have romantic feelings for each other, and there was a big age gap between them. In Braveheart, I know the timeline is off since Isabella of France is much older in the movie than she would be when the real events were happening, and Robert the Bruce was portrayed a bit differently in the movie than in real life. I don't know about you, but that's just me. Thanks and live long and prosper. My whole thing about historical epics is this. All we have now are whatever the accounts that people have written are. But if you think about it, think about your everyday life. Think about what you do all day long. Now, most of the events of history, we see them as compressed into a 2-hour period of time. Whether it's Gladiator, whether it's Braveheart, whether it's The Robe, whether it's Ben-Hur, whether it's Ten Commandments, whatever. But imagine, take yourself back to the heady days of yore and think about how all those characters spent their lives during the day. We see that, okay, we have Maximus brought into Zucabar, which is a Roman province, to meet Oliver Reed and fight for him. I mean, how long did that take? Days? Weeks of training? What did he do all day? It's not like you can watch TV. Did he just train all day? What do you do? So it's all, you cut out all the dull bits. Alfred Hitchcock said life, or drama is life with all the dull bits cut out. So whenever you're watching something historical, a movie or something, I've always thought it's based on a true story. It's informed by history, but to think you're watching something that's absolutely accurate to history is absurd. It's absurd. And since all movies are made up anyway, you might be getting a good approximation. What a great movie should do, a great historical epic should do, is make you pick up books and go read some real history if you really like it and find out how it really went down. And I think that's important. And I don't think it's necessarily up to filmmakers, because historical events, while we tell them to each other and we read them in books, we sort of turn them into great stories, great narratives. They don't usually happen necessarily in the way that's conducive to a narrative, so it has to be changed. It has to be changed. So there's nothing, more you can really do about that. Things have to be changed. And speaking of historical accuracy, Ian Samuels has written in, Rob, I've been doing some research for my next video for my YouTube channel, Detective Squirrel. Ian, I didn't know you had a YouTube channel. There we go. As part of my research into the Enfield haunting, I've been watching some documentaries as well as a TV series, and unfortunately, The Conjuring 2. I was already well aware of Ed and Lorraine Warren, two of the world's biggest con merchants of all time, but this film is a disgrace. Maurice Grosse, a member of the Society for Psychical Research, went to the house and wanted to help the family. In the film, they have Ed and Lorraine Warren doing everything and have Maurice say that the story would make them money. This is highly offensive to Maurice's memory, who passed away in 2007. The truth is that Ed and Lorraine heard about the story from a local priest. They arranged to fly over to the UK and visit the house. After being there for a couple of hours, it was Ed Warren who said to Maurice Grosse, "This is a great story and we can make a fortune." The Hodgson family and Maurice Grosse insisted they leave. So at most, the Warrens were at the house for a couple of hours, and Ed Warren showed his true colors by insisting they could make a fortune out of the story. But people believe what they see, and what is in the bloody awful film is just awful. Yes, some elements are based on true events, but there's so much that isn't. Mostly the Warrens' involvement and the Marilyn Manson none. The Conjuring 2 is an example of using a real-life story and taking it too far, besmirching the character of real people while boosting the characteristics of people who are only interested in profit and not helping others. If anyone has seen The Conjuring 2 and wants to know the real story, watch any number of the documentaries available and my video when I complete it. Ian. Well, Ian, thanks for the letter. Again, back to the historical accuracy of things. I think that what you point out is a very good thing. There's only historical accuracy will only get you so far, and it's hard to hold people accountable for historical accuracy, unfortunately. And sometimes historical accuracy doesn't make for good drama. And I don't think anyone, while Ed and Lorraine Warren are the jump-off points, I think that both of those movies, or now all three of those movies, are heavily interpreted by others and not necessarily supposed to be historical fact. But I understand your frustration with all of that. I definitely feel that. I feel your pain there. Definitely feel your pain. So, yes. Let's see what you guys are saying. What are you saying over here? I'll find out soon enough. So, let's see. Terry Pennington says, are the same people who judge the Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseur Film Festival also going to judge a short story contest? No. Or maybe have the Post-Geek Singularity vote on the short stories. Maybe there's going to be some. I'm going to do a little bit of reading the short stories. Either way, very excited for it. Whether or not my stories make it to the final 13, I still had fun writing them. Thanks. Well, we're not necessarily limited to 13, but we'll see. Congratulations for writing a story. That was awesome. Very well done. Willow asks a very interesting question. A random thing that I've been wondering about, do you think that the giant spear-throwing creatures in the Galileo 7 are sentient and hence subject to the Prime Directive? At what point do you make the distinction between animals and sentient species? Oh, that's a really good question. Look, I think that, there's probably two parts to that. The Prime Directive is actually about dealing with sentient species and civilizations that are developing. But I also think that the Federation, if there's a planet, you don't want to come and screw with the ecosystem necessarily. You don't want to Genesis device a planet where there's already life. So it's both. And I do think, look, the creatures in the Galileo 7, those behemoth creatures, they had spears, they had tools, they were a civilization. And the Prime Directive absolutely applies. So I think that it absolutely you make a distinction with sentient species. I think you do. And even though they might be very primitive, you still have to respect them. So I think the non-interference directive would apply. I absolutely do. Commander Elfin sends in a super chat and says, 3 months ago, I had no knowledge of 1/6 scale figures. Now I have the tumbler, a whole host of figures on order, and my first payment for the Jazz Inc. Snowspeeder has been paid. Damn you, Rob and Az. You're a better man now. You're a better person. You know it. I know it. How great does that Snowspeeder look? Cannot wait. I think I owe many more payments, but I've been paying it off. Chris C. said, coming soon. Rob's Hot Tub stream. Hot Tub Tuesdays. Amen. Why not? Why not? It's an excuse to build a spa out in the backyard. Stream for my... Look, man, I would totally do a hot tub stream. I would have drinks. I'd have Mai Tais. I would do Midnight Metal for my hot tub. How fantastic would that be? I'm in. Count me in. Help me out, brother. Come on, Chris C. Let's make it happen. Preston Bell sends in a super chat and says, Yo, Rob, I heard today that there were conflicting reports about an I Am Legend sequel to come out next year or the year after. Can you shed some light? A sequel? Oh, my God. Well, if it's not on deadline, let's check. I thought it was pretty definitive, but it wouldn't. I mean, we got Henry Cavill who's going to star in the new Highlander reboot. That's pretty cool. I'm not seeing anything. Let's see. I Am Legend sequel. Let me do a search. I Am Legend sequel. Teaser trailer concept. why an I Am Legend 2 still hasn't happened. I Am Legend 2 is confirmed. No, this is from We Got This Covered. I Am Legend 2 is confirmed with Will Smith starring. Don't even. BS. Don't believe that. So I haven't heard anything about it. It hasn't been officially reported. But I would see it. I liked I Am Legend. I'm a big fan. The original novel is phenomenal. I love the original novel. Stubble McShave says, maybe it's time for Robservations to start a hot tub stream. It could be a way for you to increase the number of female subscribers to Robservations. Hopefully, the effect won't be the reverse with people fleeing from the channel. Well, it's a good excuse to get in shape. That wouldn't be so bad, would it? I don't think so. Emil Johansson, I'll do it, Stubble. Will you come over and be in the hot tub with me? Come to America, and we'll do hot tub, whatever shenanigans happen on YouTube. That'd be kind of fun. Emil Johansson said, if I owned a company, I'd be pretty liberal with how people could use that platform, but without government intervention, technically tech companies have the right to ban people as they see fit. It's their platform, not the users. It's true, but they're entering into partnership deals with creators that are creating. I mean, every day on what I'm doing right now is creating content that they're monetizing. We are partners. And I still think that they do have an obligation to their partners and the people that are making them money. And if people don't, I think it's disingenuous. I really do. But you're right. It is their platform, but they're going to a partnership with us to make money. Mr. Intellectual comes back and says, Sir Robert, we've come to a serious crossroads. I chuckled out loud when I read an article stating that Amazon could bring back MGM to the luster of or WB with Discovery. This is humorous because of the hypocrisy at hand. No studio has had real power as in the good old days. No, sir. They lost control years ago, and suddenly we want to act shocked. I fear R&B, the future is very precarious. As Gordon Gekko would say, without real artists or founders at the helm, this lacks any real accountability. No, I totally agree with that. It's a bummer. Absolutely. And I think that, again, what all of this has done is, I think the problem with the studios is you didn't have any maverick people heading them up going, let's make this, let's make that. Alan Ladd's like that Lucas guy. Let's get him here. Let's see what he can do. The studios weren't doing that for years. They weren't doing that when I was working at Warner Brothers 30 years ago. And it was too bad. It was a bummer. But I don't necessarily think they lost control. What they've done is in pursuing, it's interesting. I think the direction they went down in pursuing only IPs and tentpole properties, seeking that $1 billion gross, led them down the primrose path to a dead end. And that dead end is now where they're at. And things are going to have to change. But, yeah. Just Plain Steve says, Rob, I call shenanigans on your Basic Instinct pick on your list of most anticipated movies. If re-releases weren't allowed, what would take its place? Come on, Just Plain Steve. So what he's referring to is we had our pick of our 10 most exciting movies that we want to see for the rest of the year, and my number 10 was the Basic Instinct re-release coming out from Rialto Pictures next month. In support of their 4K remastering of Basic Instinct, they're releasing it theatrically. And you know what? It's been since it's been 30 years since I've seen Catherine Trammell cross and uncross her legs in that interrogation scene. And now I can go back, or I can just wait and get the 4K disc and see it in all of its glory. So, I love Basic Instinct, so I was being cheeky. But my other two additions to my list would obviously be The Matrix 4 and Top Gun. And I always forget when people ask, what are you excited about? I always forget Matrix 4 and I always forget Top Gun. I don't know why, but I want them both to be great. A DL sends in a super chat and says, you and John Campia made a long deployment. Go fast. Thank you. Well, DL, I'm glad to hear that. Where were you deployed? How did it go? Did you stay safe? Darth Plato says, I hear what you're saying about Hollywood throwing money around in the hopes of $1 billion return. I'm curious, could it also be that no one wants to get saddled with the next Waterworld? Hence the safe bet attitude in Hollywood. Oh no, that's totally it. But I don't think what I'm saying is, Waterworld was hugely expensive. And they knew it was going to be expensive. You're shooting on water. It's not like Universal didn't know, like, hey, we made Jaws like 20 years ago. It's a pain in the ass to shoot on water. Why are we doing this? They knew. And I think, though, look, you can tell. You can tell from the script. and what you're looking to make. I think that's a big part of it. A big part of it. Paul Hansen subscribed to the channel, and Larry Herzog did too. Emil Johansson asks, if I started a family on Mars and 100 years went by as they live there, would my descendants be aliens? I guess technically they would be, unless you kept your citizenship. But if they were born off-world, they would be aliens. They would be there. They would obviously be sons of Earth. Their ancestors would be earthbound. But if you're born on Mars, you would technically be an extraterrestrial. You're not born on. You'd still be a human being, but you'd be an extraterrestrial, I think. Absolutely. So why not? Why wouldn't you be? Yeah. So there you go. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, I'm going to do this as a short show today because tonight we've got Midnight Metal. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank people for supporting the channel via Super Chats and tips. Thank you so much. And becoming members. Remember, you can become a member of the channel for as little as $1 a month tomorrow. Members, we're having another live Zoom call beginning at noon. Probably won't be a long one. Probably at least maybe full just 3 hours. But so Midnight Metal tonight beginning at midnight. And then tomorrow, a members-only Zoom call where we talk live and I get to see your lovely faces and we'll chat about things under the sun. And again, you can become a member of the channel for as little as $1 a month. So there you go there. I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank Mike Bodden. I want to thank the Richard. I want to thank Justin Toner, Darren Seeley, Justin Jorgensen. Wow, it's all good. Louise X Sparrow's probably here. Joshua Levesque is here. It's a full complement of wrenches today. So thank you all for doing all the work that you do. And if you want to send me a letter, you can do so free of charge at the Burnettwork.net website. Go there, check it out. There's a lot of great content. And so check it out. Do those kinds of things. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day. And I do, in fact, mean that. I'll see you tonight, Midnight Metal. Members, I'll see you tomorrow, Zoom call at noon. And then, of course, we have Robservations. We have Midnight Metal Saturday night with Dave Parker. Then we have Let's Get Physical Media with Dieter Bastian. Woohoo! Yeah. Join us.